Okay. Good evening and welcome to Bentley University. My name is Doreen Floyd. I'm an Associate Dean in Student Affairs, and I am thrilled that you have taken time out of your day to join us for the Family Falcon live chat. Before we begin the formal part of our presentation, I just want to take a moment to congratulate you on deciding to send your student to Bentley University. We know that for families, this is a big decision. It involves a lot of sacrifice, but we want to assure you that you've made a very good investment in your student's future. Now, as we talk about sending your student to Bentley, I know that some of you are reaching for tissues, becoming very emotional at the thought of your student leaving home, and others are leaping out of your seats, thrilled to death that your students will be leaving home. Regardless of how you feel, we know that the relationship you have with your student is very important. And for us, while the student will be the one that we form a primary relationship with, we know that one of the keys to our success is also forming good relationships with family members. So we hope that as part of the live chat today, you learn a little bit more about Bentley, our values and our expectations, and also what makes our program and services so distinctive. When your student turns to you for advice, as they likely will, it's our hope that you will be empowered to give them the information so that they can make decisions to navigate this experience on their own. By the end of the hour that we have together, we hope that you feel good about sending your student here, that you have the ability to be a resource for your student, and you are feeling terrific that Bentley was indeed the very best choice that you could make. So with that being said, let's just start with some basic information, and I'll turn this over to Jon Pika.
Thank you, Doreen. My name is Jon. I'm the Associate Dean for Student Affairs, and part of my role today is to describe the framework of our presentation, as well as the framework to how we address student needs here at Bentley. And I guess I'll begin by giving you some descriptors that our students have received from employers. Oftentimes our students are referred to as poised or problem solvers. We've heard prepared quite a bit. Resilient comes across sometimes. They are can-do types of new employees. They're thought of as critical thinkers. And these are all great qualities to have. And I think it's important for us to go over how they come to become those people by the time that they graduate. So how does Bentley University produce these types of graduates? Well, to be frank, we do have great starter ingredients, and those are your students. And the students that are coming to Bentley are among the best in the country, and we realize that, we recognize that. So with those good building blocks, we add great staff and faculty, and the staff and faculty have a plan to create an experience that students can thrive in. We help them to grow, to develop, and to mature. And as a division, we support and enhance the academic mission of the university by providing really a framework for that student development. And together, in conjunction with divisions and departments across the university, Student Affairs strives to ensure that student growth and development needs are at the forefront of how we approach every student interaction. Along the way, all of these interactions layer one on top of the other to create a progression of student development. And within that student development, ideas start to be formed within the individuals. And eventually, over time, we can see the beginnings of autonomy. And it is those autonomous students who graduate who receive such plaudits from their employers. But to get to that point, to get to that elevated status or that elevated sense of self, we actually have a process by which we ensure that students have the ability to grow and develop while they're here. And the process is based on a theory that most parents will understand intuitively, and it was a theory put together in the middle of the 20th century by a psychologist named Abraham Maslow, whose picture you see. Dr. Maslow is known for his Maslow pyramid or hierarchy of needs. And our presentation today, as well as how we structure student services, is actually based on Maslow's pyramid. Maslow's pyramid states what we all know. We know that before students, and for that matter any human, can think about higher order things, the basics need to be taken care of. The basics are shelter and food and safety and security. And when you accomplish those things, a feeling of safety, security, you're fed, then you can start to feel some sense of belonging to a process or an institution or a community. And once you have those feelings, oftentimes feelings of self-esteem and then eventually self-actualization take place. That's a very short Maslow tutorial, but all of us here are parents, and all of us realize that you have to both house people and feed them before they can start thinking about more complex things. So that's what the presentation is going to be like. We're going to talk to you a little bit about food and shelter, and then we're going to talk a little bit about safety and security, and then some about health and wellness and balance. And then we're going to go back to Doreen, and she's going to talk about how we end up building community and providing students with opportunities to build a sense of self-efficacy and a belief in themselves. So the first thing, as in the Maslow Pyramid and in this presentation, is housing. And our housing in the first year area is comprised of 3 separate buildings: Miller, Slade, and Trees. The majority of the rooms in those buildings are either doubles or triples or quads. There's a smattering of singles. There aren't that many. Each building has lounges located on each hallway. There is a common kitchen, which isn't really much used by our first year students, but it's there, and when they want it, they can use it. There are common bathrooms in each hallway, and the buildings all contain some form of defined communities, and I'll talk more about defined communities later. These are all traditional residence halls, maybe like ones you've either been to or seen before. Linear hallways with bedrooms on either side. They're co-ed. A typical residence hall room, as you see on your screen in front of you, is a carpeted floor. The walls are off-white. There's overhead lighting. There's wireless internet throughout. Air conditioning is in each bedroom. The beds are extra long, 80-inch mattresses, which obviously need extra long twin sheets. Each student gets a desk and a chair, and each student gets drawers and some wardrobe space or closet space. Our TV provider is Xfinity, so typically that means students stream what they're watching. And they can do that on a television, on a laptop, on a phone, on an iPad, on whatever. Some of you may have that at home. And the rooms are standard size, which is about 12.5 by 16 feet. So I know 12.5 by 16 feet sounds massive as a size. It's not very big. It's cozy. So I guess a brief word about what to bring with you and maybe what not to bring with you. Obviously, it's important that you bring some bedding and some towels. Those are not provided. The bedding should be extra long. The mattresses, as I said before, are oversized, 80 inches. Something for students to carry their toiletries in. For some folks, that's a kit. Other folks bring a pail of some sort, so they go back and forth to the bathroom and carry their shampoo and such with them. Clothes hangers are good, so you can hang up your clothing in the closet that's provided. And if you are bringing a TV, it might not be a bad idea to bring a cable cord. It's not really needed because many TVs these days are streaming, but that's up to you if you wanted to bring that. Things not to bring. Well, we don't allow cooking appliances in residence halls. They do create a fire hazard, and we're pretty serious about fire safety. So no pans or pots or anything like that. Microwave ovens are allowed. No cigarettes. Bentley has been a non-smoking campus for, is it 2 years or so? About 2 years. And halogen and neon lights are also a fire hazard, and they throw off a lot of heat. Also not allowed, are prohibited. Pets are not allowed with the exception of fish, and we can debate later whether or not fish are actually pets. Housing assignments. I'm sure most of you are really concerned about your housing assignment, or your students are anyway. All new students are in fact assigned randomly unless they indicate otherwise on their housing application, and each student that requests a roommate has to have the other request them as well. It wouldn't work if you could just pick somebody. We always recommend that roommates communicate prior to move-in day and discuss amongst themselves what they'll bring and maybe what they'll not bring, so that you don't end up having, two 70-inch TV screens or whatever it is that's duplicated. It also begins the process of actually communication for roommates, which is going to be a recurring theme for everyone who comes to Bentley. Roommates are, in fact, encouraged to discuss their likes and dislikes. And this hopefully will also lead to some greater ease in them discussing their thoughts and feelings. They're going to be living together. I think it's the perfect scenario for them to develop some of the skills that will be required, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in the workplace, just to navigate through life. We don't really expect that students become, or that roommates become fast friends. That does happen on occasion, but what we really expect is that there's a sense of mutual respect, that they understand one another, and they give each other both the space and the support to succeed at what is a competitive and challenging place. To the $64 million question, students will receive an email regarding their actual housing assignment in the last week of July. And that will, of course, go to their Bentley email, so please look for that. Back to building facilities and things that are available in each of the 3 first-year area buildings. There are bathrooms on every floor, as I stated. Each bathroom has showers and sinks and toilets. There's a laundry situated in each of the 3 buildings, larger one in trees. The washers and the dryers are about $1.75 a cycle, and they use an app to pay for it called Laundry Connect. There are common areas available in study and function rooms throughout the first-year area. Many students choose to study there. Sometimes they just choose to collect there socially, and there is some social programming that goes on in those spaces as well. The buildings, those spaces actually have some soft seating and some tables to facilitate those kinds of interactions. The buildings do have vending and snack machines throughout, which can actually be accessed or used with either a Falcon Card or a credit card. And I'm not actually even sure they take coins anymore. I believe it's all card accessible. Speaking of cards, the Falcon Card, which is their ID card, is their key to the kingdom, so to speak. It is a way in which they identify themselves. It is the way in which they access the library, the gym, their building, the meal plan. It's a pretty important piece of plastic. And for students, you know, hopefully they've already sent in their photograph to the card office, because their photograph will be what is placed on the card and will be waiting for them when they move in. So by all means, don't leave home or don't leave campus without your card. You should always have that with you, and that's good information for your students to have. So we've talked a little bit about shelter and food, and now we're going to jump into, or shelter rather, now we're going to jump into food, another important aspect of Maslow's Pyramid. So the Bentley Dining Program is really geared towards the student lifestyles. It's available pretty much throughout the day from 7 to 9 most days, and there are multiple options for students to get a bite to eat. The Bentley dining venues are the 921, which is the main dining hall located actually in this building, which is the student center. The Lower Cafe, which is oddly enough on the top of campus, on upper campus. Russo's Market, which is located in this building as well, kind of a sandwich shop. It's very nice. Argo Tea, also in this building. It's a European cafe with teas and coffees and some nice pastries that I probably have too many of. There's Corrido down on Lower Campus, which serves that staple of the college diet, which is a burrito, very popular. And then also on Upper Campus is an Einstein's Bagels, which is a perfect little dropping off place for students in between classes or during study breaks. They can get coffee, they can get bagel sandwiches there. It's a pretty popular location for faculty and staff too. And then on Lower Campus is a thing called The Nest, which is kind of a breakfasty kind of place. It's also popular with people that live on Lower Campus, and some folks do make the journey down to Lower Campus to get a waffle or pancakes or whatever. And Dunkin' Donuts does have a venue on campus right in Collins Hall. That is not actually part of the meal plan. You can pay for that not with discretionary dollars, which is part of your meal plan, but rather with Falcon funds or with cash or with a debit card. And lastly, every once in a while, just to keep people guessing, we send a truck around campus that can set up shop and sell other types of food. And that's a pretty popular option as well. They park on upper campus, sometimes they park on main campus, and it's a nice little change of pace. The main dining hall is called the 921, and as you can see, it's colorful and has some high-top chairs as well as some booth seating. It is a pretty active place around the dinner hour between 5 and 7. At lunch, it's not quite as well trafficked because many students are taking classes at that point. But it's a place where students both eat and talk and communicate. It's a great location. We take a lot of pride in the energy that the staff there take in keeping it clean and keeping it bright. And it's a place where, as I said before, students do congregate. First-year student meal plans are really geared towards predictability and consistency. They are built around swipes, which is what you would use in the 921 and some other venues. You can swipe to get a meal at Russo's and on Lower Calf. The discretionary dollars are intended to be used at the other venues that I mentioned, whether that's Corritos or Einstein's or the Lower Calf. Discretionary dollars are a declining balance, and so students should probably monitor how they're using that. But it's a good way for you to add some variety in where and what you eat. Most students opt for the super value plan, and that'll be what you actually start with on your fee bill. You can change that in the early part of the semester up until about September 20th, I believe. The unlimited is as it's described. It allows you to swipe in as many times as you want over the course of a day and the week, so that you're not constrained by I'm having breakfast at 7 and then even though I want a snack at 10:30, I have to keep track of my swipes because I want to have lunch and dinner. With the unlimited, you can walk in whenever you want and eat as much as you want. The value 15 is 15 swipes a week. For many students, that's enough. For some, maybe it's hard to keep track and you don't want to be at the end of the week and be out of swipes. And I think between the super value and the value 15, I think you'll find enough flexibility for your particular student. As you can see, the discretionary goes up and down depending on the number of swipes, but it's pretty close. The super value is maybe the most comforting kind of option for parents, certainly, knowing that their student can walk in at any time. So we talked a little bit about food, and now we're going to jump into some safety, security, and on the way to wellness and connection. The buildings that I mentioned are populated by about 1,050 or so first-year students, and within those first-year student buildings, there are approximately 40 RAs sprinkled throughout. Each floor has an RA, and each building has an RA staff. So Miller has a staff, Trees has a staff, Slade has a staff. Those staff members, some of whom you see in this photograph, are responsible for creating community on floors, being guides to the residents of those floors, and acting as role models and just being a presence an upper class presence for first-year students. Each of those staff has actually a professional staff member in charge of them. So Trees has an RD, a residence director, Miller has an RD, and Slade has an RD. RDs can be viewed as generalists and specialists. They're generalists in the sense that they do many, many things. Think of them almost as kind of like the mini mayor of the building. They should know what's happening in each community. They should know what's happening relative to the physical plant. They manage the RA staff. They create and ensure that a level of social programming and educational programming that the department has constructed is taking place so that students get to know each other. They do have other roles. So they do have some conduct interactions through the Office of Student Affairs and the Conduct and Development Office. They are given cases for minor violations like noise violations and the like, and they talk to students during those interactions. They're also the go-to people when we want to just reach out and talk to a student. And they live and work in the spaces that the students live in. So they're a familiar face, they're comfortable in the scenario, They all have master's degrees, so they know how to approach students, and that's really where they're specialists. They're specialists in understanding the community that they live in. They're specialists in being able to talk to college students. And they're a resource that we rely upon heavily. Residence directors not only work during the day, but on a rotating basis, work at night to ensure some semblance of coverage when the university is closed. So university offices close generally around 4:30, but at 4:30, an RD begins to carry a cell phone that they must carry with them in the overnight shift and on the weekend shifts. In that role, they are responsible for, in essence, being the arm of the university whenever we want to reach out and talk to a student or address a situation. Some of those situations have to do with health, some have to do with student behavior, some have to do with psychological issues, and all of these can take place at any hour, really, because it's a university campus and life does tend to happen like it does in any town. Really, Bentley is like a small, compact town, 3,300 undergraduate students. And the RDs are the ones that are here at night to ensure that whatever help the students need is available to them. Sometimes they'll call you, and oftentimes those conversations are about a situation that we think you should know about. I think Jerry will talk a little bit about some of those health situations. And we will let you know when we think that your student is either about to go to the hospital or has gone to the hospital. We think it's important that you have that information so you can support your student. Facilities issues also sometimes take place at night, whether that's, somebody spilled something or a door is broken or doesn't lock properly. RDs are here to manage and facilitate repairs to those kinds of things. They don't do them personally, but they do ensure that the proper staff get there. Should something more complex happen, RDs have a senior staff member that they can contact who also carries a phone with them at all hours. And in that way, we have a vertical line of experience from RDs who are usually here for 2 or 3 or 4 years to more senior staff that can either show up on campus themselves or give advice to the RD on how to best handle things. And this is a kind of a schematic of what an on-duty rotation looks like. You can see that each residential area that has an RD attached to it actually has an RA duty rotation on it too. At the center of that RA duty rotation within each of the 8 areas is the administrator on duty. So with this construct, we can keep a finger on the pulse of what is going on in every building on campus and quickly address issues or respond to situations. The RD team is not the only team that is charged with ensuring that students are supported. We have a care team and a student conduct and development team as well. A care team is actually comprised of a number of professionals, 3 of which are actually at this table. Jerry, Doreen, and I all sit on the care team. We meet on a weekly basis and discuss reports that we've gotten from a variety of sources. Reports about a student who may be either struggling with something or in need of further support or has an issue going on at home. These reports, as I said, come from faculty, they come from staff, they come from other students, and sometimes they even come from you. The care reporting system is available for anyone to access it. The website will guide you to that. And as I said, I think the care team is created and exists to support students that might be struggling a little bit. We take our role in supporting students as they go through the challenges of gaining a degree at Bentley. We take that role very, very seriously, and we're not shy about knocking on doors. We're not shy about bringing students in to check on them, and we certainly would enjoy and I think value a conversation with you about whatever concerns you may have. The conduct system is also a supportive system. It is not penal in nature. I think the idea behind it, and Erin Kelly is the director of the student conduct system, is to help students I guess, understand how their behavior may have impacted others or may impact their own academic futures. Most of the sanctions that are provided are provided with that in mind, and conversations about that as well. So as I indicated earlier, RDs are conduct officers. I'm one as well. I don't think we allow Jerry to be one because she has a different relationship with students, but Doreen is one too. Those conversations are really intended to build connections with a student based on the premise that we like students and we want to help them to avoid difficulty and we want to make them more successful. As I said before, Res Life staff acts as conduct officers, the Dean's Area staff, and there are also hearing boards for maybe a few more high profile or serious incidents. And those hearing boards are comprised of, some are just students and some are students and faculty. So the outcomes are intended, again, to be educational, and the sanctioning is educational, oftentimes with a reflective exercise in it, writing a paper, to talk about, what they've learned throughout the process. We think it's a good system, and we think it helps our students to better understand how to navigate Bentley successfully. So now we've talked about safety and security, and we've talked a bit about care, and that's a perfect lead-in to Jerry Taylor, who's the Associate Dean for Centers for for Health, Counseling and Wellness. Not international, not yet.
No. Thanks.
Got a new title
Thanks,
today.
Yeah. So I'm Jerry Taylor, as John said, and I'm also the director of the Health Center here at Bentley. We have a collaborative healthcare model with health, counseling, and wellness all working together to provide coordinated health and counseling for our students, as well as great programs and ways to help our students thrive and create healthy lifestyles that will be with them at Bentley and for the rest of their lives. First, I want to give you a little information about the health center where the healthcare takes place. It's located in Rhodes Hall, right across from the Student Center. It's staffed by 5 master's level experienced nurse practitioners, all of whom I would actually put my life in their hands. They're very good, as well as 2 part-time physicians from Children's Hospital who are board-certified adolescent specialists. All of the nurse practitioners and docs can treat, diagnose, order lab tests, and write prescriptions. We also have a nurse and a nutritionist and a front office staff. We've helped many students over the years, and we see approximately 40 to 70 students per day. We have a 95% satisfaction rating from our students. The services we provide are listed here. They're very similar to those in your pediatrician's office or in your primary care provider's office. We are open 8 to 5, basically Monday through Friday. We're open a little later till 6 on Tuesdays to give students the opportunity, if they're working internships or whatever, to be able to be seen. Our visits are by appointment. However, if students are really sick or feel that their problem's urgent, we'll see them right away and we'll squeeze them into the schedule. Students basically are pretty much seen every day, which is better than most of us can get from our own providers. So that's a real treat, and we're able to stand by that almost always. The fees in the health center are covered by your tuition, and basically there's no charge for the office visits. Prescriptions are charged to your credit card, and we do have a pharmacy delivery service that makes it particularly advantageous for our first-year students who don't have cards across the board. Lab specimens are billed to insurance, and again, students are pretty satisfied with the care. Confidentiality is really important to us, and we're not able to share any information about a student's medical condition or visit with anyone without their permission. That said, if there's an emergency or a student's being taken to the hospital emergency room by ambulance or even by campus police cruiser, we will say to the student, can we call a family member? And we've never been refused over 30 years that I've been here. If a student is being sent to the emergency room after hours, then John's area and the residence life staff will make every attempt to reach the student's emergency contact. Student health insurance in the state of Massachusetts is required of all full-time students, and students must either waive or enroll. So they can enroll in the plan or they can waive the plan and prove that they've got another type of insurance. All students are pre-billed, so they must go through this process in my Bentley. International students are required to take the insurance. The insurance plan costs $1,826 a year this year, same price as last year, so we got no raise in price because of our low loss ratio, and that was a real bonus for our students this year. It's a Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, and it's really got some very good benefits. I'd encourage you to look at the website and see whether this plan is preferable to your plan, or if your plan is better, then certainly keep with that. It must cover you while your student while they're here in the state of Massachusetts. Bentley also offers a tuition insurance plan, and this is monitored through the Student Financial Services Office. This may be helpful to families where a student has had a chronic medical condition or a psychological condition where they may not be able to finish the semester for medical reasons. What I would encourage people to do, if you're interested, go to the website, call the Liberty Mutual, and ask questions about the certain condition that your student has, and then that might be helpful for you. Our contact information from the health service is on this slide. After hours, I just want to mention that campus police is available, and they will drive a student to a local urgent care center or take them to the emergency room, or they'll call an ambulance if needed. So students need to feel very comfortable, and I'd encourage you to talk to your students about that. Campus police are very friendly and accommodating, and they will help a student get care when our office is closed. The urgent care center is about 7 minutes away from campus. The counseling center is staffed, again, by very good professionals, experienced psychologists. We have 5 of them. Peter Faulkner is the director, and they also have a consulting psychiatrist on staff there. They meet with students for individual or group counseling, and students are also seen in that office immediately if there's a crisis that's occurring for them. Who uses the services? The issues range from homesickness, relationship issues, to anxiety, depression, alcohol or drug use. Students can go in there for one visit, or they can go weekly for a while. If their problem becomes more serious or requires long-term care, then they will find a provider off campus to take care of them. It's important to know that with counseling, services are again covered by tuition, and that the files are not part of the student's academic record. Services are confidential. The students should feel very safe and secure in going to that office. Again, Peter's information is here, and please feel free to reach out to him. We also have a wellness staff, and they are 2 master's prepared health professionals, and they provide health promotion programming for our students, fitness classes. They do studies to find out what the needs of the campus are, and every couple years they do the National College Health Assessment. This is a survey that's sent to all students, and what we found in 2015 was that the impediments to academic success as rated by the students were stress, anxiety, sleep, and depression, among others. We then take those issues and we focus our programming for the year on those areas. we're going to repeat that survey this November to see if the needs have changed in the past couple of years. I also wanted to make a mention that Bentley is a smoke-free campus. We joined many other colleges across the country in becoming smoke-free a couple of years ago, and we've noticed that our illness rates have actually decreased as a result. This is a little snapshot of the programs provided by the wellness area. They have student peer educators, they provide fitness classes, and also have, it's called Take a Pause, PAWS, which is therapy dog visits. Those are programs that are held right here in the Student Center, and students get to talk to other students and also decrease stress by petting some of these dogs that come to campus. They love the program. As far as alcohol use, we feel that it's really important for parents and family members to talk to their students. We've found that the more that students have conversations about alcohol use and expectations, the higher GPAs they have. This is Jessica's contact information. Jessica Grutrawa is the director of that wellness area. Now I'd like to introduce Doreen Floyd, who's going to tell you a little more about the campus, and then we'll open up the floor for questions.
Great, thank you, Jerry. So we've talked a lot about food, we've talked a lot about shelter, and we've talked a lot about how we care for your student when they might need some additional support or attention. Your student will spend a lot of time studying and in class, but the value of a Bentley degree and the promise of a Bentley education is not only an excellent business degree, but is also an excellent life beyond Bentley. And that really is the foundation for student engagement and our belief and program that centers around the co-curricular experience. So learning happens in the classroom, obviously, but if you've met our students, you know that learning also happens on the athletic field, in the dining hall, in the residence hall, as part of their student organization involvement and leadership opportunities. So it's this belief in engagement, mentorship, and leadership, which really forms the cornerstone of our co-curricular program. And it starts for students in their freshman year. In fact, your students have already been introduced to the strengths philosophy through the online orientation program, and we will continue that during their on-campus orientation. And the strengths philosophy really centers around the fact that your student possesses some unique talents that make him or her pretty special, which I probably don't need to tell you. You probably know that as a parent watching them over the past 18 years. But they bring some incredible talent to Bentley, and it's finding ways to help them understand what they're good at and how they like to do work, and then connecting them with staff and opportunities to maximize those talents so that they can be the very best individual or the very best version of themselves that they can be. And engagement is important. We know that from our connection with the Gallup Foundation that students who are engaged in the college experience are 3 times more likely to have an excellent quality of life. Those same students are 6 times more likely, and this is evidenced by our alumni who participated in the study, 6 times more likely to be engaged in the workplace. And those are some of the most sought after individuals by employers today. So it starts with this idea that we want your student to be the very best version of themselves that they can be. Now, understanding how to do that at a place that affords students so much opportunity might be a little overwhelming. So we provide them a roadmap. And the roadmap really breaks it down into 4 years. So if you just follow through with this for a second, in the first year, we want students to discover all that's available to them. You know, coming to a new place, a new institution can be a little scary and can be a little nerve-wracking, but our orientation program is a terrific introduction to connect your students not only to students who are like them, but to connect them with students who may be a little bit different and see the world through a different lens than they might. So helping students understand how they make friends, how they connect with others through similar interests, but also finding ways to explore difference and maybe perhaps learn something new that they hadn't thought of, to engage in critical thinking skills are some tremendous assets that our students are uniquely poised to be able to do. So orientation, and some students, I think John mentioned this earlier, will be living as part of defined communities, which are specialized housing units in our residential system. But also for students who are not living in defined communities, to find opportunities to connect them so that they begin to feel that this place is their new home. And that happens very, very quickly. During the first few weeks of the semester, your student will have the chance to meet a lot of our students who are involved in student organizations. Believe it or not, even though our university is considered a small or mid-sized university, we have over 100 different organizations on campus. Now, the staff who work in student programs and engagement will tell me that students, if they don't find something that interests them, can start a new organization on their own. With over 100 student organizations that already exist, I can't imagine that there's something that's not attractive to your son or daughter. As they continue in their first year, those students will be exposed to different opportunities that center around retreats and some more thoughtful thinking. And along the way, there are plenty of staff and students who can help to guide them and make these connections for them. After their first year, students will engage a little bit differently with the community. They might participate and explore some leadership opportunities. We will help them make connections that are more meaningful to them as they start to parse out just what's important and the specific ways that they feel most valued on campus. We'll try and connect them with mentors and those deep experiences that really begin to shape their college experience. In the third year, we're going to encourage more reflective time and allow students to sort of look back on their first 2 years and decide where the deeper meaning is for them. And so participating in a global experience, thinking perhaps about the world a little bit differently than they had before, being able to work through difference in a way that doesn't build barriers but really builds alliances. Doing things like intergroup dialogue, which is a trained process with staff and students, where students can walk through differences that surround maybe gender and different aspects of identity. Defining and identifying leadership opportunities is often a big part of a student's experience in their third year. And if you meet many of our student leaders and ask them what year they are, they'll tell you that they're juniors or about to be juniors. And then in their senior year, we hope that students really find time to celebrate and think about all that they've accomplished. We will do that all the way through commencement, finding ways to celebrate students through different recognition opportunities as they start to think about how they want to leave Bentley. And one of our most signature programs, proudest moments, happens for most of our seniors who decide to travel with us to the Bahamas just before graduation. Some of the students who are in the room with us now helping to make this video chat are eagerly nodding their heads back and forth, just waiting for their chance to go. But this is a wonderful bookend experience to the orientation program where we onboard students and introduce them to the Bentley culture, philosophy, and then as they begin to wrap up their time here with their undergraduate years to celebrate all that they've accomplished in a way that's especially meaningful. And finally, commencement. When you see your student cross that stage 4 years later, I can't even tell you what a tear-jerking moment that will be, but it will be one of the proudest moments as a parent that you can experience. You look at your student now and you may think that they are incredibly grown, and it is absolutely nothing compared to what you'll see 4 years later. So a few words to close with before we enter into the questions. You know, as John alluded to, I think he introduced, we are also parents, the three of us, in addition to being part of this excellent team in student affairs. So we understand what you might be going through. One of the hardest things to do, both in working with parents and also as a parent myself, is allowing students to make this their journey. I know that I know exactly what would make life easier for my children. They don't necessarily want to hear that. And sometimes as a parent, that can be difficult. But I recognize, and I hope that you recognize, that this is their journey, this is their time. It's important to allow for mistakes and mishaps. My youngest son, who does not attend Bentley, continually has to listen to me tell him that he would be an excellent member of a crew team. I am convinced he would be an Olympic rower if he just set his foot into the shell or the boat. He wants no part of it. he has discovered other things that are important to him. And as much as I kind of look at him and say, you know what, Harry, I really think this would work for you, he's not interested. And I've understood that he has discovered other things that are more interesting and important to him. He's taken some part in some governance opportunities in the residence hall, which I never thought he would do. He's about to travel abroad next semester in Croatia, which I never thought he would do. So he continually surprises me, but he also tells me that he is growing and he is developing in ways that are healthy and important for him. Believe in your student. They are incredible. You have done a terrific job in raising them so far. And hopefully now you have some more information, so when they turn to you with a challenge or some difficulty, you can guide them and help support them as they manage this on their own, but not to do the work for them. And I would close by saying the hardest thing as a parent sometimes can not be knowing what your child is doing or what your student is doing. You know, in this age of cell phone and constant communication, we as parents are very used to knowing everything that's going on in our students' lives. They will tell you when it's appropriate in ways that are important to them. And just as you would not want to tell your own parents everything that is going on in your life, know and trust that the relationship that you are forming with your student now is probably one of the most important and pivotal ones that you will ever have. So, we're good? Okay. So at this point, I know that some of you have been sending questions in while we have been talking. So we have those coming to us real shortly. We'll begin answering those, but please, if you have questions, please continue to type those in and we will get to them as they come in, right? Okay.
Maureen, can I just add one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, you know, what Doreen said is absolutely right. You want the student to think for themselves. However, if at any time, and I think John mentioned this earlier, if at any time you feel that there's something going wrong with your kid, you know, that they're not acting right, you're worried about them in some way, please don't hesitate to reach out to one of us. We would be happy to talk to you, to possibly talk to your student if needed, and we'll try to find the resources to help them if there's truly something going on.
Okay, so thanks. That was good advice, Jerry. So a couple questions that you are asking, and I think this first one goes to John. So someone's asking about whether or not my student can move in early.
Well, I think the answer is that there are some programs that actually require students to move in early, so it would really depend upon what program the student has become involved in. So in the first year area, defined communities move in a little earlier so they can get to know one another and engage in some of the programming revolving around the theme that they're constructed for. There are some students that are arriving from a long, long distance. And for those folks, they've contacted us and we've made arrangements for them to arrive. And then there's a couple of other early arrival programs that are really curated or managed by a student affairs department. But if you're asking whether or not the student can come in early alone without being attached to one of those programs, I think that would be a conversation that I would prefer to have with you in person and hear the reasons for the request. And we'll work with you. We certainly don't want to make it any harder than it has to be. Having said that, I also think there's great value in the shared experience of moving in. Move-in day is like no other on a university campus, and I've worked on the university campus for a long, long time, and the excitement, the emotion, the enthusiasm, and yes, sometimes the tears are all joined and joint, and they will forever remember that day. They will be able to actually reflect back on it when they're seniors. And in fact, we go so far as to take those seniors that are going to the Bahamas and put them back into their freshman residence hall for that last week. And it's a powerful, powerful connector. So I would talk to you about it, but I would strongly encourage you to consider the impact of that move-in day, that move-in process. It's pretty powerful.
Okay. Jerry, this is a kind of a two-part question, so I'll just give them both to you at once. Questions about a healthcare proxy. I'm not sure what the question is, but perhaps you could elaborate on what that is and the importance of that. And if my son or daughter has food sensitivities or allergies, does the dining hall provide any accommodations for this?
Sure, thanks, Jill. First, the healthcare proxy, that's a legal document that you draw up with your son or daughter before they leave for college. It doesn't have to be at that time, but at any time. And it gives the parent or the guardian the permission to talk to medical personnel about medical problems. We do not use them in the health center because we're not open 24/7. And when we are open, if a parent wants to talk to us, it's easy for us to get a student's permission. I also ask all my staff to talk to the student if they have moderate to serious illness and say, is your family worried about you? If they are, we'd be glad to talk to them. And usually the student has already been texting their parent or their family member a couple of times during the day, and they're in the office and they have their phone with them, and the provider says, I'd be happy to talk to them right now, and they talk to them. The healthcare proxy is more important for an emergency room, so I encourage parents, if you're going to do one, keep it at home in a safe place so that if you hear that your child is in an emergency room and they call you, that you will have that piece of paper that gives them permission to speak with you. The other question was on food sensitivities. Sodexo, our food service, does a great job of trying to accommodate students with food allergies, and they have a nutritionist, Laura Klotz, and we can get you in touch with them if you want to either email me or call me. They have a place called My Zone, which is a little room where they have food that has not been touched by any of those offending food pieces. But they will talk to the student about how they can deal with the allergy on campus. That said, we also have EpiPens in our office when we're open, and all university police officers are first responders, and they carry EpiPens with them as well, 24/7.
Okay, great, thank you. John, this is going back to you. What happens if my son or daughter finds out that they don't like their roommate? Can they switch roommates?
Well, that would make me sad to begin with. But I think it would be dependent upon how and when it happens and whether or not there's been any conversation between the two, how that's gone. So the short answer is, I think switches can be possible at some point in the semester. I think the longer answer is that we'd like to engage in some form of communication, negotiation between your student and the Res Center staff, and even coach the student on the conversation that might be had, could be had, or should be had with their roommate. There's no getting around it that, living with someone that you've not met before can be a challenge. It's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity to learn from one another. It's an opportunity to really practice your communication skills. And excuse me, we wouldn't ever expect that a first-year student or even a second-year student would be able to engage in those conversations without some help, without some coaching. And that's what the RA is for, and that's what the RD is for. And so we'd like to go through that process with them, and through it perhaps either figure out a way forward or create some different skill sets for the students involved, or if it comes to it, eventually facilitating the move. So, yeah.
No, I had one more thing I wanted to mention. The state of Massachusetts is also very strict about immunizations. And so immunizations were required to be submitted a record of immunizations by July 1st. And certainly if you haven't submitted them yet, there's still time. So please send them in as soon as possible. We have an immunization clinic on move-in day, and so if students haven't received their immunizations, we're happy to give them that day, although it's kind of a stressful day and I hate to see a student get injections that day, but we do have that capability. By the state of Massachusetts requires us to make sure that all students living in residence have immunizations to protect the rest of the community from contagious diseases.
Okay. And you guys have some great questions, but one of our families is asking if there's transportation for their student to get off campus. And so I don't know if we covered this in our presentation or not, but first-year students are not permitted in general to have cars on campus. Some students may need a vehicle for work or family reasons, and we can advise on what the process is for that. But for the most part, we really want students to engage in the campus life and the campus experience. And so not having a car on campus makes that a little bit more possible, or structures that a little bit differently. And with our new multipurpose arena opening last year, we're excited about the opportunities that afford students for free skate, for certainly our home hockey games, for different lectures and different concerts and events that take place in that facility. So there is a lot going on campus. But sometimes your student does have to get off campus, especially if you're sending your student from far away. We do have a very good shuttle system, which moves students around campus when weather is bad or when weather is good and they just don't feel like walking, but also gives students easy access to Harvard Square and the MBTA, which is our underground subway system. That will connect students to Logan Airport, so if they need to fly or they need to go to some of the bus stations and train stations, railway stations that can get them to other parts of the state and in the New England area, that is easily available as well.
Yeah, I would also add that this is one of those times when students are generally ahead of us and have already figured out that if it's not a shuttle, then there's an Uber and there's a Lyft. And, the advent of those services have certainly made transportation a much more flexible thing. Students do use those services quite a bit on campus.
And Zipcar. We have
a Zipcar as well.
So.
Or you could actually walk.
Can freshmen cook in their dorms, and does a first-year student have to live in the freshman dorms?
So that is a good question. Can freshmen cook in their dorms? My general answer is no, because they've not evidenced that so far. But there is an opportunity to do so. There are common area kitchens. I think I referenced that in the presentation. The meal plan is intended to actually provide the majority, the bulk, all of their nutritional needs. But if somebody wants to make something special, there is a dedicated kitchen in the Trees and Miller and Slade that they can make use of. And I think the second follow-up question was, do they have to live in...
Do first-year students have to live in the freshman dorms?
So yes, our first-year area is exclusively for first-year students, with the exception of the RA staff that we house there. As they navigate through their first year and look into their second year, then the rest of campus opens up to them, from suite style to apartment style, based on where they select in housing. But for the first year, Miller, Slade, and the Trees are very centrally located on campus. They're close to the student center where they get most of their meals and have a lot of social activities. They're fairly close to classes as well. It's a perfect situation. So we do put all first-year students in those three buildings.
I think we have time for maybe one more question. Okay. So Jerry, this is going to go to you. My son or daughter has severe asthma, and maybe expand that to severe XXX. But who needs to know, and do they get special accommodations?
Right. As far as the asthma, all of the providers in the health center are really experienced at helping students with asthma. We have inhalers in the office, we have nebulizer treatments, and as I said before, we do have EpiPens. And we have a great resource in campus police. If we have an emergency in the office and a student's having a severe asthmatic attack, we will begin to tend to them, but we'll also call for an ambulance. And the response time is very quick. Our local hospital that we primarily use is Newton Wellesley, which is part of the partner system connected with Mass General Hospital in Boston. And usually we work with housing if the student has some triggers for the asthma. If there's anything in the residence hall in John's area, it would help with that.
Mm-hmm. So I think we are about at time, and want to thank you for hanging in there with us. Hopefully you have found today's live chat helpful and informative and allows you to be a resource for your students. If you have additional questions, please feel free to contact any one of us. Our contact information is included at the end of this presentation, but also please email ga_orientation@bentley.edu, and that's an easy way to get us your questions. A few things that I'd like to mention before we leave. We will be hosting another Falcon Family Live Chat, and this will feature 4 parents of Bentley students. So it's an opportunity for you to maybe as parents ask those questions of other parents that you just don't know where to turn. But you know, this is another informational opportunity. We also have a number of videos on the Orientation Family Resource section that highlight the services and programs of the Student Affairs departments. And finally, on move-in day, and yeah, I think somebody asked about this, but we will provide tissues if you need them. Move-in day is an exceptional day here at Bentley. I think we do an outstanding job. But as part of that, we invite you to our family reception in the afternoon around 2 o'clock and encourage you to stay for our convocation ceremony, which is the formal introduction to the academic year for your student. It is spectacular and certainly a wonderful way to end your day with us and to see your students start their Bentley career with us as well. So with that being said, thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you in August.